and we've Brent crude oil on an upward movement over the last few days, and continuing to do so today, up 0.5% above $63 on Brent after dipping below $60 at the beginning of the week on the back of the news of OPEC Plus decision, that sort of OPEC 8, to increase supply or announce a further increase, accelerated increase in supply from June, having accelerated and are supposedly accelerating supply this month and last month. But we're also seeing reports out today that OPEC's April production, that's OPEC as compared to OPEC to plus, or the 8, or it gets confusing after a while, as I like to say. Will the real OPEC please stand up? But ultimately, OPEC production actually was down last month, according to a survey reported by Reuters. So what's going on? Mark Ostwald, chief economist and global strategist at ADM Investor Services International. Your thoughts on, when you sum all the pieces together, what's driving this oil market currently?
To a certain extent, I think it is this. I'd call it FOMO and buy the dip type mentality that we've got pervading in all risk assets. Everyone wants to put a positive spin on recent developments, above all in terms of US trade tariffs, and hoping that the hit to the global economy, which is definitely going to come, there's no question about that. But we just, none of us really have a clue of what exactly is the size, and the size is, what will matter ultimately, particularly for the oil markets. And in the background, obviously, whether the US manages to do a modest little trade deal with the UK, ultimately it is what goes on next week between the US and China, which will be, above all for the oil markets, to my way, the most important thing. Even if China's overall oil demand, has to be seen in the context of its weak domestic economy.
Ali Al-Riyami, consultant and former Director General of Marketing at the Ministry of Energy and Minerals in Oman. Ali, one of the big questions of the last month or more has been, what is driving OPEC Plus decision, or the OPEC 8, or more specifically Saudi Arabia, to be increasing supply, accelerating the increase of supply for 2 months in a row now, announcing last weekend. In order to answer that question, one needs to answer that in order to know where things go next. Why do you think this, what appears to be a counterintuitive move by OPEC Plus 8 and Saudi Arabia to increase supply into a demand weak environment?
Well, they don't think that the demand is weak. That's why they have increased their supplies. And in their statement, when they have announced about the acceleration of this increasing of barrels to the market, they have mentioned that they believe that the fundamentals are supporting us. They're supporting them. Also, the storages are on the lower side, 5 years average. And it is summertime, and the timing is good. And they have given plenty of reasons why they want to increase. But me and you, we believe that the fundamentals are not really supporting any decision to grow or to add any more oil in the market. We don't see any improvement in the Asia side, or Europe or America. So I don't know the reason exactly, but maybe could be. I always say that these 8 countries and actually the whole OPEC plus countries, they are facing some internal pressure from other producers like Kazakhstan, like Iraq, like UAE, like other members, that they are pushing so hard to increase the production. And what was making these countries, or supporting the other side of the decision is Saudi Arabia, who was trying their best to put everybody together and also to try and read the market in a different way. But the pressure from inside is I think it is significant, especially from countries like Kazakhstan, that they have spent billions of dollars on investments and the upstream, and they want to see the returns on their investment. And it's an obvious decision. But is it the market? Is it supporting this decision? So far, we haven't seen any big impact. We saw the prices went down, but they're for several reasons, not only for the OPEC decision, but the tariffs and so on and so forth. Like we see now, that improvement, that the $2.50 that we have improved from last day to today, it is not only because of the sanctions or the stronger sanctions on Venezuela or Iran, but also the talks or the hope that we have that the Chinese and the Americans, they will sit together. The UK, they've already almost signed a deal with Americans. So things are getting better on the tariff side. But from the fundamentals, I think they will still need to see if there is any improvement, such an improvement in the fundamentals to decide that yes, the OPEC decision to increase their production is a correct one, and it is rotten. Well, we will have to wait and see.
Shoaib Boutamin, Energy Advisor and CEO for Ranadrill Energy, usually in Algeria, but today in Berlin. Shoaib, but your thoughts on the same question, really? I mean, a lot of the reporting has been that the OPEC plus the OPEC plus 8 that are part of this accelerated supply increase or accelerated quota supply increase, one has to state, rather than actual supply. It's a quota increase plan. The reporting on this has generally been Saudi Arabia wants to get everybody else in line because there's too many countries misbehaving on their quotas. So this is to inflict a little bit of pain or a lot of pain, depending on your thoughts. Given, if one accepts that thesis, at Brent at $62, is Saudi Arabia succeeding in its, if that is the stated strategy as reported by most news agencies, is Saudi Arabia getting the outcome that it's reported to want?
Oh yeah, good morning, Sean. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I think it's barrel at $62 at the moment. I think everybody is struggling to be online because, as you know, in the last few weeks, we had struggling with non-compliance of many countries. I think we know Iraq, Kazakhstan, and other countries. So this complex situation, I believe, pushed Saudi Arabia and is leading the OPEC Plus to take, decision to push for this orientation to increase supplies by the upcoming month. I think this is the right decision at the moment because we have to go deeply to know what's really happening in non-OPEC producers. United States production is stagnation. We have a stagnation in the US, and we have also non-rising production also in Argentina and other countries. I think this is a good time, the right time for the OPEC Plus to recover its market share. So now at this, I think this price is not really comfortable zone for most of the countries, for the OPEC members. But I believe with time, we have to be patient for a few, let's say, months. And we see that I strongly believe that we'll see more positive things to come to the market because we are coming to summer where we have it's a driving season where we have more demand on oil, and they think by summer we'll have more demand, and I strongly believe that the prices will be improved by summer, and I think the right plan now is to go forward to recover the market share and let's say keep an open eye what's happening between the US and China. Because they are the biggest economies in the world, the biggest consumers of oil. And I think any deal between both countries will really ramp up the consumption on oil. And I think will be push forward to make, to increase more oil to the market.
The situation as we're seeing it go forward, Mark, now obviously the big news of the week and there's a lot of things happening out there, but China-US trade talks happening this weekend in the aftermath of whatever was that was announced yesterday between the UK and the US. I still don't really quite understand what exactly it was, except another smokescreen in the sort of NAFTA model. A lot of trade tariff war noise, and then essentially a fig leaf of change disguised as a breakthrough great trade agreement, the best ever. Are we going to see, is that your take on the UK? What does the UK deal tell us about where maybe China and the other deals will go?
I think the UK deal tells us that the Trump administration is now getting to the point with all the run of negative news around tariff wars, what's happening to the US economy, really needs a win. And so this was really pumped up, hyped up as a big win. It was probably one of the easier ones, apart from anything else, because the US and the UK have been talking about a trade deal for about 8 years.
Right. Since Brexit, basically.
Yes, since Brexit. It's small beer, it covers autos, it covers livestock largely. Other than that, it's really very insignificant. Doesn't, I think at the margin, and most importantly, I think the thing to take home from this is that base level increase to 10% on tariffs is still there. And that's probably an important thing. It means basically, even if we don't have these outsized reciprocal tariffs put in place, that base of 10% remains there. And that is a negative for the global economy. And it implies a lot of rerouting of trade. And it still behoves all the countries in the rest of the world to basically look around and say, right, we need to deal more with each other and basically decouple somewhat from the US in terms of it being a less reliable partner.
Of course, the China framework is obviously different in the sense that there was no pause to the reciprocal, and they're both at well above 100%. Does simply returning to normal pre-April 2nd, would that be the big swinging bells and ringing as success, and it's just basically back to what was?
Well, I don't think returning to normal levels of tariffs, if there is such thing as normal levels of tariffs, but if we go back to where we were, would necessarily actually be that good a thing. We've got LA port traffic down 60%. It's at the moment, and that's a pretty good bellwether for what's happening to US-China trade. It could even get worse because there may be some lags. So I think China's signals that we're getting are that it wants to show willingness to talk, but it really, it's said in advance of the talks that what it's looking for is for the US initially to back down on the tariffs that it's put in place. And I'm not sure that Mr. Trump and his negotiators are really willing to do that without China making some very large concessions. So it's a very big game of bluff at the moment.
Ali, I wanted to get your thoughts on the wider thesis that I kind of exploring at this time with this decision by the OPEC 8 to increase supply or increase quotas aggressively beyond the pace of the previously announced progress of a little bit every month. They've now gone for full throttle 3 months in a month rather than 1 month at a time, and seem to indicate that they will continue to do so. So my thesis exploring here is, are we in a historic sort of tipping point where OPEC, OPEC Plus, the OPEC 8, whatever collection thereof, are moving from a historic posture of 50 years of essentially controlling supply to maximize price, and moving into an era, not arrived in, but moving towards and into an era where it'll be all about maximizing production for the low-cost producer? Your thoughts on that, or is this just another little dance and things will return to as was within a few weeks or months?
Well, actually, I like to believe that this is another little dance rather than having any kind of problems in the production and also in the price and the war on market share and so on. So I think it is just a matter of a time that maybe there is, like I said, there is a strong push from inside, and countries like Saudi Arabia and others, they will still believe that OPEC Plus it's a strong union, and things will move better. But the thing is that don't forget, Sean, that we have a visit coming from Donald Trump to the region coming very soon, and could be one of the tactics to prepare for this visit. I mean, we all know that Donald Trump or the administration in America, they're always after the low price oil low price. So this could be, the preparation for this visit, and to focus more on other things rather than, giving a hard time to producing countries like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like Kuwait, and others that Donald Trump is going to visit. To focus on the peace in the region and other stuff. So I think it is a matter of time. I believe that once we have everybody satisfied, I'm talking about the members of OPEC Plus satisfied with their or their quotas, then I think things will go back to normal. But to go back to discuss or to focus on market share, well, I think it's a wrong thing. It's a wrong decision actually from the members, and I don't believe that they are thinking about that at the moment. The more focus, as we always know, it's on the fundamentals rather than focusing on who's getting what from the market. We've seen that happen in 2014, and 2 years after that, the market collapsed. We went down to $10 or $15 oil price. And so I don't think that anybody wants to get into that situation anymore. We all know that the countries like Oman, Saudi Arabia, and others, we want the price to be above 80 to start breathing, rather than getting to the right numbers of break even for our budgets. So I don't think that we are in a situation where we focus on something different than the fundamentals to support the prices and to support the market at the moment.
Shoaib, what about Algeria? We don't really hear too often what that position is vis-a-vis the OPEC plus internal dynamics. Would they be on board with this strategy currently being seen? Of course, the OPEC 8, they took the decision unilaterally amongst the 8 countries to make these cuts a year or two ago, whenever that started. And it's obviously in their prerogative to unwind those cuts whenever they want to. But where does Algeria have a position on this management of OPEC plus?
Oh yeah, I think Algeria is, and the third OPEC, the 8 members of the OPEC plus was all the time committed to its engagement. And I remember last month when they put the OPEC plus put a plan to let's say to manage the cuts. Algeria was excluded because Algeria was all the time committed to its quotas with the OPEC plus. I think it's crucial to say that compliance and non-compliance of the OPEC members really affected and impacted really the global oil market. Because as I all the time say, if we make a plan, we put a target, let's say, to reduce production for example, at the OPEC plus down in 5.8 million barrels per day. And at the end of the day, the month, you find that you find also you are cutting only more than that or less than that. So non-compliance, I believe, is a big issue, and OPEC Plus has to solve it as soon as possible. And I think this is a big trouble for the organization if the OPEC Plus want to keep let's say, to keep steady supplies and stabilize the prices on the market.
What they have
Sean,
to bring those barrels back in order to maintain unity and
exactly.
stability,
Yeah,
even
and
if it damages price like it's doing.
doesn't matter. If you want to recover your market share, don't look too much, don't concentrate a lot on the price, because something is happening, Sean, at the moment. When prices dropped before 65, everybody of the OPEC members is trying to comply, to be on the train. Why? Because they will not get any benefit of supplying more to the market. So this is a very positive thing at the moment. Everybody is trying to be on the line, and $63, I think, from now and going to upcoming weeks, I believe, we'll have more stability of the market, because the OPEC plus members are complying to this, and I strongly believe that Algeria, Saudi Arabia, and Oman, and many members will be really more committed to this. And I think this is the right time for the OPEC plus to recover its market share. But I have to repeat it, we have to be patient about prices.
Let's go to the survey question, again, focusing on the trade issue and the talks between China and the US. The most likely outcome of China-US trade talks is for things to simply return to the way they were before April 2nd. That's certainly what seems to be the Chinese are saying, that any gateway to any discussions or deal, things have to go back to the way they were. So the most likely outcome, China-US trade talks, is simply return to where they were before April 2nd. Mark, there's a few things coexisting here at the same time. Putin and Xi Jinping are in Russia together. The reminder there being that this is a fundamental partnership that is probably an obstacle to doing a deal in Ukraine. I'm just wondering, as you connect these global dots, the idea of China-Russia partnership, Russia-Trump dance, the sort of Iran-US negotiations on Iran, how do you see those connecting points between solving these very big problems? Are they all separate little islands, or how do you see them connected?
Well, they're always all connected, particularly with a Trump administration, because he is so transaction based and he wants to champion the win, particularly given, if you look at the domestic feedback in the United States about what he's done is actually pretty negative. And so he needs something to be able to champion, to say, we're going to go through a little bit of pain, but it's all worth it because we're getting all these deals. So in that respect, they're all connected, but they're also all quite disparate. And I think certainly Xi Jinping probably views its relationship, China's relationship with Russia, as something which is not really primarily affected by its relationship with the US. So for China, these are completely different issues, and there is no relation. It has nevertheless called for Russia to reach a peace agreement.
But it does benefit, let me just interject there to be devil's advocate in a way, that China does benefit a lot from the fact that Russia has limited options on its pipeline gas and can win very large new gas contracts at cheap prices.
Yes, it is a major benefit for the Chinese economy and for its supply lines in terms of raw materials and energy. Absolutely crucial. And one would
from my sense, there's multiple reasons why Xi Jinping wouldn't support Putin negotiating a deal to end Ukraine. Is kind of where I'm at.
Yes, I mean, he's calling for a peace deal, but he's more than aware of the fact that a peace deal is not going to actually come about just because he calls for it. So it's nice words at the end of the day. So that there is a relationship. I think the more complex one is the Iran one, simply because China's influence in Iran is enormous nowadays. It's an enormous supporter of the Iranian economy as it is of the Iraqi economy. They're the biggest beneficiary of the Belt and Road monies nowadays. So there is an interconnectivity, but I think I, th I think the biggest danger at the moment is we keep on extrapolating from one set of negotiations, resolving one problem to another, because there is a mindset of we want things to be better, to go back to the way they were. Most notable thing I noticed this week at Commodity Trading Week is the amount of people is, oh, well, this is all just a little storm in the teacup and we'll just go back to the normal global trade patterns. It's not going to happen. The US has basically gone, the US has given the UK the biggest get out of jail free card from being the unreliable partner, untrustworthy, and taken that role on. So the UK gets a huge benefit from that, much more than from any trade deal. But the US, all other countries will now see this as precedent setting, particularly as most people realize that whether we change presidents from Republican to Democrat, Congress is fundamentally hostile to China, and that's something which everyone always needs to remember.
Ali, the same kind of idea here. I mean, you mentioned earlier Trump is coming to the region. Where is the region at right now as they intersect with the context of the US president, the US government? I mean, there's two things. There's Trump and then there's the US president, US president government. And then you've got the Israeli slaughter in Gaza, and you've got the Iran deal. I mean, are we any closer to a vision of these things finding a settlement? A few months ago, it felt like in January we had kind of arrived at, okay, this is winding down. Now it feels like not. Your thoughts on where the region is at from a directional point of view, and does Trump play a role in getting it resolved in any way?
Actually, there is no doubt that the Trump administration is more eager to bring something. I don't know what is it, but something to the Middle East. Is it good or bad? We will have to wait and see. But
well, you'd have to say bad so far, because Gaza has gone from being nightmare to being an absolute and utter nightmare.
That is correct regarding Gaza, yes. But the Gaza problem, it is an ongoing. It is not something started just a few weeks ago, but it is almost like 2 years now. So it is an ongoing thing. It's similar to Al-Houthi in Yemen. But I'm talking about the overall picture.
Right.
I think to start negotiation with Iran, that is a big step forward. It was something that it unforeseen before during the Biden administration, but now we started seeing some benefits out of, or at least a light through the tunnel at the moment. We are not there yet, but we hope that soon we'll see something. But I also, if we talk about Yemen, I think also there is something that's been going on for the last few days or few weeks. There is a discussion and also kind of an agreement between Americans and Al-Houthi not to target any American vessels and so on and so on. So there is something over there. The bigger problem in the Middle East at the moment is Gaza, and Gaza is not only the Americans, but it is included. As Israeli is controlling the fight over there more than anybody else. Of course, Americans, they have a strong say on Israeli, but at the end, Benjamin has his own, Netanyahu he has own internal agenda, and he's following that very, very well at the moment. But
we wonder, with Trump coming to the region, is he coming more primarily for his own self-interest, or is he coming for a wider regional benefit of global positioning for the United States in historical time? And that's a rhetorical question. Obviously, we'll see.
I think
for both.
I think for both. Yes.
It seems I would agree with that, certainly. Which more than the other, I don't know. But ultimately, for the first time ever, a US president comes to the region where he literally has one hand out and one hand out. Shoaib, where are we at? You're in Berlin, and I just wanted to get your thoughts. You're at a pipeline event in Berlin. I'm wondering, are people talking about new pipelines here, there? Are they restarting those old pipelines? Or what does it look like in Central Europe vis-a-vis the return of pipeline connectivity to Russia and the future outlook there? What are they talking about at the event in Berlin?
Yeah, this is a great question, Sean. What happened last 4 days ago, that the European Union is setting at the moment a plan, a roadmap to phase out through a Repower Europe program to phase out the Russian oil and gas by 2027. Okay, so Russia was supplying, let's say, 150 BCM of natural gas in 2021. Now is supplying only 52 billion cubic meters. And for oil, it was supplying like 27%. So Europe now is supplying only 3%. So this is the big issue the Germans and the Europeans are facing at the moment, is the volatility of the prices. And how can we manage this? They are already in troubles at the moment with oil, with prices, with natural gas, with volatility. So let's give you an example. Natural gas 2 months ago was like 54, 40, 55 euro in TTF per megawatt hour. Now it's less 30, 32. So this volatility of prices is putting like Europeans in a very critical situation at the moment. And more than that, they are trying now to phase out, to wean themselves off the Russian supplies by 2027. And
the remaining Russian supplies.
Exactly. And this will put the Europeans in a very, very big issue. But this point, I believe that the OPEC members can seize this opportunity, especially in North African region, Algeria and Libya, can take this opportunity if they succeed to phase out the Russian oil and natural gas. It's a good market share for them, and they strongly believe many things will happen in the next 2 years for the Europeans, as they keep all the time believing in everything green. But we have to say that if we take 1 barrel of oil, I can calculate exactly and accurately what's the content of energy. But I cannot make those calculations in the same way when I have a windmill, so which is dependent to the wind of the speed of the wind and many parameters. So this is the big issue at the moment. They keep the politicians in the European Union, they keep believing that renewable energies, they can rely on them 100%. But this is something wrong. They have to put in mind that renewables and fossils have to stay longer. We have to combine both of them. And what happened in Spain, what happened in Germany and in January, a big phenomenon which is, let's say, which affected the windmills, wind energy production.
Yeah, we certainly need to wrap it up. Sorry to interrupt you, but ultimately, look forward to reading what the bottom line cause of the events in Spain, because what caused that big blackout. Because in the void of accurate data, there is a big moment of bash transition, bash renewables, for whatever role it did or did not play in the Spain blackout. I think it's important that that's accurate in order for that narrative not to get too distorted. Disagree. There's a big disagree here. Not going back to normal. That's the view, Mark. I take that headline. You win, I lose. Not going back to normal is the headline of the weekend. Let's take that off. Mark in the UK, thank you so much. Ali Al-Riyami in Oman, Shoaib Boutamin in Berlin. Safe journey back home to Algeria. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see where all of these things go after the weekend, because, of course, as we were talking, next week, Donald Trump comes to our neighborhood, and certainly to continue to generate big headlines. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And bye-bye.